Right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Star Wars Comics in Canon podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Chris, and my co-host and very good friend is Dave.
Hey there, Chris, and hello to our listeners out there. Welcome to Star Wars Comics in Canon. And you will realize that neither myself nor Chris are actually Mike Burton. So rather than the encyclopedic recall of all the Star Wars lore and knowledge about characters and getting names right, we're going to do that a little bit differently this week. And also, Chris and I are going to try not to put each other off because we don't normally do the video thing. It's really quite off-putting. But Chris, we are back on Comics in Motion.
We are. It's been too long, Dave, and it's my fault for making us be so committed to reality TV. You hated me for 7 months, and now we've come out the other side, and we're back. So yes, we are here doing something different. And big thanks to Mike as well, because it feels a bit cheap, me and you coming in on the last episode and stealing the 1 yard tapping, Dave.
Yeah, absolutely. John Terry style. I've got all the Star Wars pictures out, especially for it. I've got the T-shirt. We are ready to go. The Gary Lineker tap in right at the end, and we're going to talk about the finale. But before we get that, Chris, what do you make? What do you make of the whole series?
Well,
Again.
well, I've got to say, I've been quite disappointed with it. I think having loved season 2 and loving the ending and what happened there, the whole Jedi stuff. Spoiler if you've not watched it, but Luke coming back and the whole de-aging thing and everything, amazing. It's not like you've heard this before, Dave. But
I still don't think it's a spoiler. If you're discussing season 3, I think it's okay to talk about season 2.
what did I do? Didn't I say about a film from like 1980? Spoiler. And you were like, Chris, if they've not watched it 42 years ago, they haven't
Spoiler,
watched it.
Luke
Spoiler.
Skywalker's in Return the Jedi.
You won't believe who his father is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So no,
Spoil
what would?
it.
Yeah, sorry. So no. So what I'd say is, I felt this has been very obvious. This series, I felt that everything that's happened has been. I don't know. I felt there's been no danger, no payoff. Moff Gideon, the whole that Doctor episode was a waste of my fucking time, Dave. Again, it was like the Boba Fett thing having Mandalorian in the middle, which explained.
It's not that bad.
No, that's a great episode. But Boba Fett as a series, I thought was absolute shit. But that episode was brilliant because it brought Grogu back in. It had Luke there, but it was nothing to do with the story of Book of Boba Fett. All this middle one with the Doctor seemed to do was just have this baddie who is Moff Gideon's sidekick, who's feeding him information about what's going on, but never showed up again at the end. And I found it nonsense. But I just felt that we were playing a computer game, and it was like, like I play Zelda, and it's coming out, so the new Zelda, or like RPG games. And I'm not a big fan, but me and Sam will play certain ones, and it'll be like, right, I need to go and find a sword, but you're going to have to go and speak to this gatekeeper who's going to say to you, for you to get this sword, you now need to go and kill these people because they've stolen my horse or something like that. And that's what it seemed to be every episode. It was like, oh, hang on, I need to go and get this from this planet. But 1 minute here, we've got something else. Apollo Creed's there saying, oh, we need this. He goes and does a bit of business for him. The Mandalores, the Mandalorians go and find them. Well, we need to go and do this. I enjoyed it because it's the characters and I love the characters, but I just felt this series for me, Dave, has been pretty average and pretty underwhelming, which I was been so looking forward to it. So I'm sorry about this, Mike, but I'm just throwing myself out there with it. So what about yourself, Dave?
Well, I bet Mike's delighted he asked us to come on and do his show for him, isn't he? Just come on and destroy it. But what's just occurred to me as well is that obviously we've got Apollo Creed, as you called him there. So Carl Weathers, just
Yeah.
waiting for him to call Mando the Italian Stallion, which coincidentally is the title of next week's VHS.
Well,
Strikes Back episode, which is eventful. I will say that. So slight
yes.
plug there. So I don't know. I feel like season 1 and season 2 were both quite episodic. Going back to that old network TV sort of style where
Yeah.
you watch an episode and there's a definite self-contained story there, and then they try and make sure there's an overarching story as well. But usually it's they'll find the next clue. For me, that felt more like a game than this series. For me, this series felt a little bit different. And it felt more like the animated series for me. It felt more like a Clone Wars or a Rebels or something like that, where it's expanding out this little pocket of the universe. It's expanding out on the Mandalorian lore. So I've quite enjoyed it, but also walking through it, I have thought, well, this is going to split opinion. And I also feel like because of what they did in the finale of season 2,
Yeah.
I kind of feel like, Christ, how do you ever get close to topping that? That is basically a 40-year payoff from Return of the Jedi going, not quite 40 years, but going to the finale of that. I just don't think you could improve upon that, because all the things that went into that as ingredients into the emotional state. There was the sequels, which it very much divides opinion, doesn't it? But
Yeah.
it didn't really put Luke Skywalker up there, did it? It did him a bit of a disservice. And for people of our generation who've gone through and absolutely loved him, to see him kind of broken down and go from Father, I know you're basically a space Nazi, but I'm sure there's good in you, to Kylo Ren, you've had a bad dream, you must die. It's just, there's a lot of things in the sequels that didn't make sense. And even the first two, I was forgiving of, and the final one, I was like, oh, fuck you.
Yeah.
It's just shit. I'm not, so I was kind of done with it then. But to have that Return of the Jedi Luke Skywalker show back up in his fucking prime, kicking ass and taking names, I just thought it was a brilliant moment. I can't think you can ever recreate or top. So they haven't tried to. They've just tried to do something different. They're exploring more of the Mandalorian culture, and you've got all these different factions, and don't ask me to name all the names. Bo-Katan, I'll remember that, but
Yeah.
that's about it. But so I've enjoyed it going through it, but I can see why you're not as invested.
No, I'm not, Dave. And funny enough, Dave, I really enjoyed Andor. Not Endor, Dave, as you
You
said
gotta
before.
fuck
Andor.
off.
Well, it's not in the podcast, Dave. But anyway,
But do you not feel like you said about not liking the Doctor episode? Do you not feel like that Doctor episode was the most Andor-like episode? It was exploring the kind of greyness of all the people within the Empire. I didn't notice that
slowly going down. You can tell we never put cameras on, Dave, when we record these days. But sorry about this, guys. We're on YouTube. I apologize. Sorry, say that again, Dave. I was getting sidetracked as I was like streaking down to get on the camera.
Sorry, your mic's just reminded me of the Italian stallion again.
His fucking head's not that big, Dave.
It wasn't his head I was thinking.
No, I meant that head, not that
head. Right, moving on. Yeah, so the Doctor episode, I felt like was the most Andor-like episode. And,
Yeah.
I thought again, that was more like, I've said the previous 2 seasons were more like episodic network TV, but that was
Yeah.
more like cable TV or streaming service TV, where they'll take these side episodes and then just explore something else. And yeah, there's kind of a link, with the bigger story, but it is taking time to sort of breathe and disappear off into a different pocket of the story where you didn't expect it to go.
Yeah. I think the problem is as well, though, it's like, what was the point, if that makes sense? So I've probably phrased it wrong. I didn't dislike the episode, but I thought it was going to be a payoff. And now we've got to the point at the end of the series. I'm like, well, that was just a waste of everyone's time. It was just all I can see it is that the baddie was just used for one scene with Moff Gideon in episode 7. See you later. I mean, we had Christopher Lloyd there. Let's be honest, Dave. Probably one of the worst baddies we've ever seen. I was not convinced by Doc Brown at all. Absolutely garbage. And it was so obvious what was going on there. Again, another Jack Black, the whole thing again, just cameos galore. Am I being a bit cynical, Dave? Yes, probably. But I just didn't
do you not
get
think,
me.
right, that it kind of we're watching the Star Wars, all the different movies and
Yeah,
stuff. Count Dooku is a piece of shit, isn't he?
yeah,
If you're just watching the movies, forget all the other stuff around it. So he's a definite baddie. Whereas Christopher Lloyd, he wasn't where he was coming from was not necessarily bad. He's not like a henchman, for Doctor
no,
Evil or something. He had his own political views, and as far as he was concerned, the separatists were right. So I thought, I mean, why would you bring Doc Brown in to only play that minor role? I did think he was going to
yeah,
come back, to be honest, but he didn't. So I was like, oh, well, that's annoying. But maybe that will be further down the line. I don't think you bring him in, do you, to only play
no,
that minor role? But no, I just thought, and this is why I feel like this season is a little bit more like the animated series, because the animated
yeah,
series does explore like the political angle quite a bit more, and the fact that there is no it's not as clear cut as like a New Hope, where space Nazis goodies, right?
yeah.
Uh, I just think it's much more grey about that, and sort of this, you're looking at the old empire, but the new republic, almost seem
Yeah.
as bad, don't they? You know, and
Yeah.
so it's all very grey and debatable.
Yeah, and I think, you know what, David, he sort of plays into, us two doing a comics in motion return together. It almost plays into the whole ethos of the podcast. The original comics in motion podcast was, I just watch the films, I watch the movie TV shows, I have no background. You're the comic guy. You're right. You've gone down a rabbit hole of watching some of the animated stuff, haven't you? You've watched
Mm,
quite a few of the things, and I get that. And that maybe that's what it is again. It's the old Chris special. I don't know. And I love Mike. And congratulations, by the way, to Mike and Megan who've announced their engagement, Dave. Two great
yep,
people. Don't
awesome.
hate me too much, Mike, please, for what I'm saying. But genuinely, no, I mean it. So congratulations, two really good people. They need a Las Vegas tour guide. You know where I am, guys. I've already pitched you once. You know where I am. So, no, what I would say is it feels like if Mike was here, there's a comic to explain the things, Dave. I love it. I love it because he'll explain it because Mike knows everything about the Lord, everything that doesn't make sense in the stuff. Mike's around, I love listening to him when he goes through these things, and I mean that. And I think there's a lot went on in this series, but I think what it is, Dave, I didn't feel that any of the characters were ever in danger. I never felt that
Mm,
Din Djarin was going to really get killed. I never thought Grogu was there. He's more there for comedy elements more than he's anything else. I don't think it really. It was the same stuff, the same trope. I felt like the Mandalorian stuff about finding Mandalore and going down, to the water thing and all that,
mm.
and finding it. He just took a chance on a planet apparently that would kill him, and just thought, fuck it, I'll just go for all these clouds and all these, and he was there. So I don't know. There was just stuff that was so convenient. But I know we're talking about episode 8, but just to say, as an overall series, leading into episode 8, if we were doing a score, I'd put it in the middle. A comics emotion
Mm.
score, I'd have it in the middle at the moment, anyway, until we talk about this last episode. But yeah.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there. I don't feel like there was any real peril
Yeah. Yeah.
at any point. And actually, in this season, I feel like they've just ramped up the cuteness of
Yeah.
Grogu as well, or Din Grogu, as
In
we'll
Grogu, Dave. Yes.
yeah, as he gets named. But I felt like the baby noises and the cuteness, I felt like it was ramped up to 11 in this one. And
Yeah,
I thought, I mean, getting into the episode a bit, there's a bit where he's in his Grogu cop outfit, isn't it? The old IG-11, and
yeah,
he gets taken off by the Imperial guards, and Din Djarin's getting beaten up by Moff Gideon. And there's a bit where Grogu just sort of jumps up, and he's avoiding these Imperial guards.
yeah.
I've loved the whole season, and I like this finale as well. But I thought that was ridiculous. I thought it looked like Monty Python or something like that. Have you seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail?
Yeah,
Where
no,
they
I
have
haven't
the
actually. No, I've
where
never
they have
seen
the
it.
killer rabbit. I'll have to send you a clip of it, but again, it's ridiculous. It's just this thing clearly on wires,
Yeah,
and the fact that he's powerful, Grogu's powerful with the Force and everything. He's 50 years old, but he's making goo goo gaga noises all the time. It's
yeah.
just for me this season, it's played on that a little bit too much. And I guess, you know, we're 40s something blokes, aren't we? So
Yeah.
maybe it's not aimed at us as much as like a younger audience, which I can kind of embrace as well. But yeah, for that bit, I didn't love that.
No, I mean, obviously, Dave. I mean, like, you say that. I think stuff like that is catering to a different audience. That's not us. I mean, you're tipping 50. I'm, 44, Dave.
Just waiting for it.
Sorry, that is a cliche. Actually, that's a running joke, that, isn't it?
I
But
have
no,
got
don't be.
one or two grey hairs there as
You're
well.
joking,
Yeah,
aren't you? Look at them.
yeah, yeah,
Christ, yeah, I beat you there, Dave, by a
you,
lot.
yeah. You said that as if I didn't just lead you straight into that, but
How dare you, Dave? We're shut with curtains now. But no, but you're right. I did feel that sort of thing wasn't for us. That's not the audience to
yeah,
cater for. Grogu is an absolute merchandise monster, isn't he? Like everyone who's into Star Wars, they've got Grogu. It's so obvious, you know what I mean? Like he's probably sold so much for them, probably
mm,
more than the subscriptions on Disney Plus. Everyone's just bought stuff for the kids and everything. So I get it. I totally understand it, but I do agree with you. I think the only thing that I did like was quite no. I can't say I didn't hate the series at all. I didn't. But when he got the robot and he's just going, no, yes, no, no, no,
yeah,
no, yes, 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 and then it came into fruition on this episode. But I think with the episode, it starts off and you've got like a Bo-Katan leading everyone in, and obviously he got captured in the last episode, Annie, and Moff Gideon come down. He's got the proper armor on now, so he's basically indestructible. Again, though, there was a bit of peril at the end of the last episode when one of the Mandalorian guys, the big hefty guy,
yeah.
the
Big
big
old
muscle
guy,
one,
wasn't he?
yeah, he gets taken out of the game, but he absolutely takes names for ages. He just does enough so they can get away. I don't know. I just think I was glad. One thing I was glad about, there was no Jedi intervention, Dave. There was no
Mm,
being from somewhere else that basically, because I did think, as much as I love the Luke Skywalker thing as a fan of the original Star Wars and iconic character, it didn't cheapen the Mandalorian, but if they'd have done it again, and it was like, well, they need saving. They're not that good. It had just been
yeah,
crap. So I
yeah,
was glad that they were able to fight, and I was glad that Bo-Katan got the dark saber, which, let's be honest, he got fucking absolutely destroyed by Moff Gideon, Dave. So that was a waste of time. Wanted
yeah.
him giving it back to her, but yeah, I just think as the episode went on, it was pure action. There's some great set pieces. As you said before, I think you summed it up right. There was no peril. There was no feeling that they were in danger. Even when they were fighting Moff Gideon, I never once thought he's going to kill one of these. One of these two is going
Yeah,
to get. Is Bo-Katan actually going to get taken out? And because she even revealed, didn't she, to everyone that she'd given the dark saber as a plea deal, so he didn't kill everyone and double cross her. And he did double cross her as
yeah.
only Why would you think somebody who works for the Empire would not double cross you? Oh,
He's
hello. You know
all
what I mean?
dressed in black, looking
Yeah.
all
With red and everything. Just
sinister.
looking.
Yeah.
Dave,
Are we the
like this, I've still
baddies?
got like that, Dave. Look there, red, all the red in his eyes. Are you
No, I'm
sure? Yeah.
totally cool.
I'm a good guy. Why would you think that? But yeah, it's really strange, really, really strange that. And it ends well, and we do sort of get a New Hope type end to it, don't we? You know, like you get everyone together. You know, the only character I thought there was going to be a heel turn, Dave, more than anything, is it the forger, the one who was doing all the tools and that?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because there was like the odd look, wasn't there, and everything. As if, and I was thinking, is she part of like Moff Gideon's crew? Is that why? Is the things going on? You know, obviously it was Red 5 was what's it called, the R25, what it's called. But
Yeah,
he
Red
was the
5.
reason he led, you know, he sort of led to them because he thought they had a spy. But I did think that character was the one that was working as a double agent, but obviously wasn't. It wasn't. They did do quite a good job on that. Like I say, I didn't hate the series. I didn't, but it felt like I was just watching it this last episode just to get through to say I've watched it, you know, not because we were recording. I've watched it every
Yeah.
week. I missed the first 2 episodes, and then I got to episode 3, and I watched all 3 of them in one afternoon, and then I've been consistently watching them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think some of the action was really good, wasn't it?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah,
the moment, it's almost like a Phantom Menace moment, wasn't it? Where you had all the dark troopers and they were behind the red
yeah,
shield. It's almost like when Obi-Wan's facing off against Darth Maul. And so you got Red 5 opening the different doors there. And I
yeah.
thought that was decent action, but you know he was just plowing through them like Lauren Avedon through butter, wasn't he?
Legend, Dave. It's a great
So
callback.
so yeah, I thought that was good, but yeah, I don't know how they'd have built in more kind of peril. You know, maybe. I mean, Chris, let's go back to the movies like old farts, but Empire Strikes Back, Luke gets his fucking hand cut off. You know, there
Yeah,
is something with real stakes there. Okay, they give him a robot hand, but it's you know, in that moment you're like, holy shit.
yeah,
We've seen this guy in A New Hope. He's the New Hope, and you just cut his bloody hand off,
yeah.
and he's your fucking dad as well. You know, so there was massive weight to what happened there, and I guess probably expecting that from a series. You know, expecting some massive thing to change is probably a little bit too much. But essentially, at the end of it, you know, they've got rid of Din Djarin. Din Djarin, what am I on about? He's Mando. Moff Gideon.
Moff Gideon, yeah.
They got rid of him. The Mandalorians, all the different factions and everything have come together, and you know they're back on Mandalore now, so all is well. But you know, probably not massive stakes. But I did like the fact that it was a bit of a Sinestro style thing as well with Moff Gideon. So, is in The Incredibles?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, Sinestro. What was his name? Uh,
I
Sinestro.
don't know the guy. I don't know the guy's name, but I've watched it. Incredibles. Yeah,
Well, he was just pissed off because he didn't have superpowers. And Moff Gideon in one moment was like, "I don't have the Force," you know, and they killed off all the clones that were him, but with the Force and stuff as well. But I don't know whether he intended to give it that kind of petulant child sort of
yeah,
delivery, but I thought that's the way it came across.
yeah. It's interesting because that's all at the end fight, really, isn't it? Now,
Mm,
Dave, I've read some stuff online after watching it that, you know, obviously he killed all the clones and everything, but then if someone was saying that Moff Gideon had a moustache, Dave, in series 2, and now he hasn't. Is he really dead? And then I'm thinking, well, he could be.
Space razors.
Yeah, yeah, a bit. He got a bit.
Yeah.
But then I'm thinking, like, well, he had the armor on. Potentially, he could still be alive. He could be alive. But then I'm thinking, what's the fucking point? If you're going to go for a series 4, you need a new big bad, don't you? You need some proper peril because at the end of this episode, basically, Din Djarin had the full Thanos treatment, Dave. He sat there in his little field, didn't he? Resting on his rocking chair, and Grogu's playing
Good
away there.
callback
Yeah,
there. I didn't think of
yeah.
Thanos, but
Mm,
that's yeah. I thought it was more, you know, because the whole thing's basically a space western, isn't it? And
yeah,
so I felt like it was more that it was more like they were out on the farm. They've got their little hut there. So yeah, but Thanos as well. Like that's another decent parallel. Yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it? Because at the end
Yeah,
of, oh, honestly, if I go back and watch the end of season 2 again, not just the fact that Luke Skywalker takes names, but it's the whole
yeah,
separation as well, isn't it? You know,
yeah,
Grogu has to leave because he's going to go and learn the Force from Luke and everything. It's so emotional and choking. Whereas this, it's like, is that it then? Are they
yeah,
going to draw a line under this or what? And so Grogu, you know, I thought the special effects were good. In fact, the whole series, in particular this finale, I felt like they'd spent a bit more money because previously they have you seen the like making of where they show you the
yeah,
volume
yeah,
and everything? It's fantastic technology, isn't it? But with the flying and everything, you're like, well, that's not, you know, you've had to have CGI'd quite a lot of that. But the fire and Grogu's using the Force to create an invisible force field kind of thing. It's like, well, we've seen Grogu use the Force when he really has to. You know, when the plot requires it, he uses it quite a lot. And when Din Djarin's getting his ass kicked, he's like, oh, move something a little bit. You know, it's like, and it's like the Dark Troopers when the Beskar steel has to be indestructible, it is, and lasers are bouncing
yeah.
off it and everything. But when Din Djarin's taking names, he can just like stab them and then that's it, or knock one of them out. It's just a bit weird at times.
Yeah, well, it's like you always say, it's just a plot device, isn't it? I think you said before, it's fast and ready in these things. I'm nicking your sayings now, Dave, but fast and ready. But what gets me is like, obviously,
Fast and ready.
yeah, whatever.
When have you heard me say that?
Fast and loose, is it, Dave? Something like that. Maybe that's for a different podcast. But anyway,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think what's interesting is like Moff Gideon's gone. As I say, we need a new big bad. We've got the whole thing now where it's going to go for a new series. He's basically gone to see the, the what they call the what's that guy called, Dave? The bloody one who's driving the X-wing. You know, he's part of the resistance or whatever he's supposed to be. And he's like, I'm a bounty hunter by trade. So what are we going to get in the next series? Like, where does it go? Because it almost feels like, yeah, Mandalorians are back together as a whole, like race. They're back together. They've got a base now. They've got the respects. Everyone's going to come, and obviously the whole galaxy of Mandalorians will come back to them now. They know, Bo-Katan's leading them. But it's like, well, where do we go here? What's the point? And I'm still going to go back to what you were saying before. If you not watch Book of Boba Fett and you'd watch season 2 of The Mandalorian, absolutely. Where is the storyteller? I know there's a little bit of a flashback, but you would watch it, go straight to series 3 and go, why is Grogu about the Mandalorian? That is like Disney being arrogant, thinking that you watch every single thing, like we all do. But it's like not everyone does that. I've had to tell people who watch the Mandalorian like at work and at essentially like, well, how's the baby, how's the child ended up back with him? I'm like, you've got to watch Book of Boba Fett, and they're like, just sell me, and that's like an arrogance thing, nothing to do with the show, but it's just an arrogance thing on Disney's part, I think, because it's really silly that is a massive part, but you've got to watch a different show to understand it. And if you don't watch it, you won't have a clue why he's by his side again. So anyway, that's just me on my little soapbox there.
I haven't seen anything. There might be stuff out there, but I haven't ever heard anything as to, you know, why the hell that Boba Fett thing happened. Like just the whole bloody series was pretty pointless, wasn't it? Those two
Yeah.
Mando episodes were the best thing. I think everyone
Yeah,
agrees.
everyone. Yeah,
And it's
amazing.
just like, okay, you could have just given us those two. We'd have been all
Yeah.
right with that, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Weird. But so yeah, so what score would you give it, Chris, then? This finale?
Are we going off comics in motion scores, Dave? Or
We could do. We could mix it up a bit. I don't think Mike scores them, but you know we could do it. Do you remember what the scale is?
so
It
I'm
must be about a
wincing now.
year.
It's our fucking podcast and we don't even know it. So if it's the greatest thing you've ever seen, we send it to Asgard. If it's just below that, I ain't got a fucking clue, Dave. Atlantis. If it's in the middle, it's Hall of Justice. Not Halls of Justice, as you call it, Dave. Hall of Justice. Then it's Hell's Kitchen, and then if it's absolutely terrible, we send it to Alderaan, Dave. Alderaan. So I
The
would put it
Phantom
in
Zone. Alderon's
Phantom
the
Zone.
VHS, isn't it?
Yeah, I knew that, Dave. I knew that. Yeah, Phantom Zone. That's it. That's how long it's been. No, so I would send it in the middle. A Hall of Justice. I enjoyed it. I genuinely did enjoy it. I just felt it wasn't there. You know what it felt like, Dave? A bit like what's happening with Marvel at the moment. You had the highs of Endgame, and then you've just got these absolute shit movies, other than a couple of like No Way Home was good, but all the others I've just not enjoyed like I thought I would. So yeah,
No, I
interesting.
think that's fair. I think I think this episode in particular felt like a Marvel series finale. You know,
Yeah.
you've had all the stuff leading up to it, and then you've just got a big kind of showdown at the end. I thought, you know, they had the battle on three fronts thing, you know, which we've seen since Return
Yeah,
of the Jedi. So I thought that was, I don't know if that was an intentional homage. The fact that you got the burning at the end as well, I thought was quite Return of the Jedi. So no, I'll probably send it Hall of Justice as well. I think this was intriguing without being particularly on fire. Yeah.
intrigued.
You've charmed me.
You've charmed me, Dave. Charmed me. It'll never not be funny that.
No.
Yeah. Anyway, but
To me and you, no one else.
yeah, no one else, Dave. No one else. No, but no, honestly, mate, it's been good this to get back into the saddle as well, doing Comics in Motion. It's that was our baby all these years ago. What, 5 years ago, Dave, doing podcasting. That was our first ever podcast together. So
Yeah.
we will be coming back, and we've both said we're going to regularly do something, aren't we, Dave? So
Yeah.
we're going to do to get the reviews going again. And but massive thanks to Mike. This has been great. I mean, Genuine Chit-Chat is Mike's podcast. He does Star Wars comics in canon. Such a great guy, great guests on as well. And this has just been great to listen, Dave. It really has, because when you know how I'm like, I'm cynical. I throw it all out there, what I'm thinking. It's not always the right thing, but I throw it out there. But when you actually listen to people who know what they're talking about, like Mike and you do as well, it's interesting to bounce off it. So yeah, so I really enjoyed this tonight. Actually, it's just something completely different to come on. We're not stealing Mike's fun there. We have just scored the 1 yard tap in to finish off the series. But please listen, if you have just picked up me and Dave talking, come back. There's 7 other great episodes with great guests. So come back and have a listen to it for the whole series.
Absolutely. And I should probably try and loop you in to watch Star Wars Rebels. At least 2 or 3 episodes are about 20 minutes each, because as Mike Burton would say, it is the best Star Wars content that is out there. So, I think maybe we should try and get you to watch that. So
yeah,
Math and Mike and I are going through the series. So we've been through season 1. And we need to start season 2 at some point, but I think we should try and get you in there as well.
Yeah, give us a shout, Dave, because you know me, I can't commit to all of it. You always try and get me in, and I always go,
I mean,
I'll do it,
cover
I'll do it. And
right after you've finished watching Hit Monkey.
What else have I not watched? I
The
will
list
watch that,
is
Dave.
long.
I will watch it, And then about 3 weeks
Definitely going to
later,
watch that.
yeah, then you'll
Let's
go,
do Eternals next.
you know what? I'll fucking talk about that shit, Dave. In fact, that's what should be our return to Comics in Motion. Oh my God, what a fucking shit film that is. Oh my
I don't
God.
think it's as bad, but I think we should keep our powder dry just in case we do come back with that one. But anyway, mate, listen, it's been brilliant to get back. It is getting dark here, and I haven't got a light. So before I disappear, we should probably just about wrap up. What have you got there?
I've still got my thing. I've got a light, Dave.
Oh, right.
Darth's there. He's happy. Throwing it in there for comedy value. No one's laughed yet, Dave, but the props there.
Yeah.
So anyway,
me as the only audience member. So thank you very much, sir. If you want to get in touch with us, email us at comicsinmotionpodcast@gmail.com or get us on Twitter at comicsinmotionp. Get Mike, who is the guru of all things Star Wars, at Genuine Chit-Chat, and you can get him on Star Wars Comics in Canon as well. But until then, we shall leave you and just say, may the Force be with you.
Always. Goodbye.
Hello, my friends. Thank you so much for listening to this episode and to all of the episodes of the Mandalorian discussion show that we have done. I am so sorry that I could not be a part of this conversation, but Chris and Dave did a fantastic job, as they always do, at hosting and obviously chatting Star Wars. So big thanks to both of those guys, and also thanks to everyone else who's been in the Mandalorian discussion shows of this season 3. So that's Brett Scott, Angry Andy, Ben of Star Wars Timeline, Tonya Todd, Thomas Rochester, Ike's Flame, Spider Dan, Stevie B, Megan, and then obviously myself. Yay. So yeah, just thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And yeah, sorry I couldn't be in this one. It's basically just Megan's birthday, so you can wish her a happy birthday. It's her birthday, so I just didn't really have the time, to be honest with you. And I've got my friend Alex, who's going away as well, so we want to see him. So there's lots of busy things that just so happen. So I managed to every week apart from the finale. So in brief, my thoughts on the finale was I did really enjoy it. And I do agree that I did feel like it was slightly anticlimactic. I take Dave's point where it's like, it's hard to kind of top the last season, but for me it was like I really enjoyed it. I feel like they could have maybe done more. I thought they may have done like a teaser with Thrawn or something like that, but yeah, it's one of those things where it was fun. It's not like Andor, it's not in that kind of realm. I'm rewatching Andor at the moment, actually. It's not quite that extent of how much I enjoy it, but it's fun. It's a fun show. I did enjoy the finale, and Megan was really enjoying it as well, seeing Grogu do all that kind of stuff. So it's one of those things that Mandalorian for me it's a very fun, accessible bit of Star Wars, and a lot of people I know watch Mandalorian, so anyone can talk about it. Whereas Andor, although it's much more, it's a much more intense show, and a lot less people have seen it. So I find that although I love it, there's not that many people I know who want to talk about it. So it's a weird thing that Mandalorian's obviously a bit bigger, especially because of Grogu and things like that. But as Dave said as well, it's the animated shows, guys. Thank you, Dave, for saying about Star Wars Rebels. Thank you. But yes, always talking about Star Wars Rebels, and we're going to be watching it. If Chris could come into that would be amazing. I'm trying to get Megan to come into it as well. But yeah, Rebels, friends, you've got a bit of time, okay? We're in April. Ahsoka doesn't come out till August. You've got 4 months, okay? Star Wars Rebels, there's 4 seasons, do 1 season a month. First season is 16 episodes. They're like 20 minutes long each, and season 1 it's good. It's a good show. It's fun. It's good. But then season 2 just hits it up a notch. And then each season, it's so good. As Dave said, it's one of the best pieces of Star Wars content that exists. And I stand by that. And I will always say that. And that's going to be the next kind of Star Wars-y thing that we're going to have out on Comics in Motion. There's also Star Wars Visions Series 2 that comes out May 4th. Obviously, May the 4th. So we're going to be doing something to do with that. It might just be me and Megan. I might grab Dave or someone else into it. So Star Wars Visions Series 2. And then there's also Young Jedi Adventures that's coming out, but I probably won't do a podcast about that. I shouldn't think. We haven't really done a podcast about the Bad Batch Series 2 either. I really enjoyed it, just to clarify. I won't say any spoilers or anything, but I thought it was fantastic. It was a lot of fun. Maybe I'll talk to Ben at Star Wars Timeline, trying to do an episode about that. But still, lots of Star Wars stuff coming your way. I really did enjoy a lot of the things in this episode. I feel like if that is the end of Moff Gideon, I'm a bit like, I kind of wish he was about for longer, but I mean, I love Giancarlo Esposito. He's such a good baddie, as obviously shown in Breaking Bad. And I only realized at Star Wars Celebration that baddie is more of an English term. Like, Americans don't generally hear the word baddie. It's bad guy. That was just a weird thing. I thought I'd share it with some of my fellow UK listeners who may not have been aware of that strange little thing, because I just thought baddie was really obvious, but apparently not. Apparently people didn't realise what that was. But I really like Moff Gideon. I think he's really good. Obviously, I like all the elements of Mandalorian. I find this season has been more up and down. I'm kind of torn if I like it more or not. I think that the previous season, because of the Jedi episode with Ahsoka and then the finale, was so amazing. The rest of it I did enjoy, but I just think those peaks are almost unattainable at this point. Maybe in future seasons it might be, but in this season it didn't quite get to those heights. But I felt like, as Dave said, the lore of it and the intrigue and the stuff about Mandalorian culture, it's much more in depth. So it's like I'm enjoying it on one level more, but I'm enjoying it on another level like slightly less. But it's still really fun. I'm a lover of Star Wars. I can critique it, and there have been weaker moments. That episode that was a bit more like Andor. I like it lore-wise. I think it's a good episode in general. I wasn't that thrilled by it. I think that's the kind of feel. It wasn't a show that made me desperate to keep watching. But I've said before, like, Mandalorian doesn't really do that to me. When a new episode of Mandalorian coming out, I'm like, yeah, cool, Mandalorian, that's great. But when it was like the next episode of Andor finished, or certain Star Wars Rebels episodes, I was like, I need to know what happens next. I have to know. Whereas Mandalorian, there hasn't really been that, because the problem is I find with the show is that any danger that Grogu and Din Djarin are really in, they're not really in that danger. I think Bo-Katan could be in danger at certain points, but they're kind of almost invincible until the finale, I find. I suspect Din's going to die in the absolute finale of The Mandalorian. I suspect that's how it's going to end, and Grogu's going to go off into himself in the universe. That's probably what I would gather. But you don't really know what's with these things, so I don't know. But that's only a small amount of thing that I'm a bit like, it does take away the dramatic tension somewhat. It's like, especially when it's like especially when it's episodes that aren't the finale. Like, they're not going to kill like Din Djarin in episode 2 of a season. It's just not going to happen. And I know you can. I've said it with Mandalorian shows where, you know, they're not going to kill one of the like titular character in like the second film. They only really kill titular characters in the big movies. We've got the MCU, like Avengers and things. Like, they're not going to kill Ant-Man in Ant-Man 2. That's not going to happen. You know, they're going to do it in Avengers 4 or 5, whatever it is, 5. So it's that kind of idea that I find that Star Wars does struggle with a little bit. Whereas like the Ahsoka show, I think she probably will survive, but I'm like, I suppose they could kill her in that show because she hasn't appeared as much in live action in the other stuff. I don't think they will. Again, I think they're going to save it for a big finale, some sort of big event thing that's probably going to be a movie, which is probably going to be a Thrawn movie, I suspect, or Heir to the Empire movie. It's going to be something like that, and all these series are all culminating to some gigantic event thing, which is going to be that, and there's probably going to be another Luke Skywalker appearance. That's what I think, and if I was in Lucasfilm, that's probably what I would do, to be honest with you. That's where it seems to be kind of going. But yeah, I'm enjoying The Mandalorian. I did enjoy Andor more, and I have been enjoying Mandalorian more than Kenobi. Again, Kenobi had some cool like moments, like the episode 3 and episode 6 with the Vader Kenobi stuff. It's phenomenal, but the rest of it is like, yeah, it's pretty good. It's not like amazing. And then with Mando, I've been finding like, yeah, these episodes are cool. I'm really enjoying the Mandalorian culture, but I want to delve deep. I want to see like Mandalore the Great. I want to see the person who created the Darksaber, and I suspect that with what happened in this, where the Darksaber was destroyed, it's probably more likely that it's going to, they're going to either have to reconstruct it, and to do that, maybe we're going to get a flashback or in some way. I don't know. That'd be quite interesting to see how it was made in live action, because once again, friends, in animation, we've already kind of seen it to a degree. We know a lot more about the Darksaber in animation, Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels. So yeah, I'm interested by the lore. This does feel a bit middle of the roady this season. It felt like this could almost have been half a season, I suppose, but I don't know. It's just the stuff with Gideon I'm unsure about. I don't know. I felt like the stakes weren't as high. I did think that, oh, cool, they've got Mandalore and that sort of thing. But this is like a middle chapter, I suppose. That's kind of how it's going. As I've said before, I feel like Mandalorian, it feels like 5 seasons to me. It could be more. They could easily do more than that. I don't really know. I suspect Disney would want them to do more. They'd probably want them to do like 10, but I don't really know. I feel like after this event thing that's probably going to happen, that Dave Filoni's making, I feel like that might be kind of where all these things end, and then they're going to start doing live action content in other places, because that would be quite interesting, and I don't want them to be like, hey, let's do Mandalorian for like 10 or 20 seasons. I don't want that. So for me, if it was like 5 or 6, I'd be like, okay, that's a fair amount of seasons. So let's try and the middle stuff, like where we are now, is kind of a build up in a way. The first few seasons have been transitional. Now I've got the Mandalorian culture, and then it's like, well, where are they going to be? What's going to happen with them? They weren't even mentioned in the sequel trilogy. So is that foreboding that something really bad's going to happen to them? Or is it going to explain that they didn't want to get involved in galactic politics, and when all this stuff happened in the sequel trilogy, do they go off and do other stuff? But the sequel trilogy at this point, I think it's about 20 to 25 years later on. That's when The Force Awakens is from here. So we are avoiding what Jon Favreau said in an interview, where he kind of hinted at Book of Boba Fett and Mandalorian Series 3 being like several years later than the other seasons of Mandalorian. Like maybe each season of Mandalorian is like a year or two. Like aside from that, he didn't quite say that, but he kind of hinted it, and everyone's kind of interpreted it slightly differently. If we ignore that for a moment, online, the only kind of thing we have at the moment, unless it's in the Star Wars Timelines book, which is coming out soon, so that may completely change this, make everything I'm about to say irrelevant, but I feel like at the moment, it seems to be about 9 years after the Battle of Yavin. So it's about 5 years after Return of the Jedi. Maybe it's 5, 6, 7 years after Return of the Jedi, but it doesn't seem to be more than sort of 10 years after. That it doesn't seem to be that far ahead. So, and The Force Awakens is 30 years after Return of the Jedi. So, there's still quite a bit of time to go to see what Mandalorians were doing. It could just be the case that I kind of said a minute ago. It could just be the case of they'll eventually explain it in a book or a series or something, and it will basically be, Mandalorians, they just didn't want to get involved in the First Order and all that stuff. I feel like they probably would, but, maybe that. Or maybe we're going to tragedy. And Din and Grogu are going to be off planet and the whole planet's going to get destroyed or scorched or something again. Who really knows? But I'm kind of waffling now, so I'm just trying to think so that I don't have to edit and cut out any dead air. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else that I need to say. Apart from you can hear, my throat's not very good because I'm not feeling amazing. I've got a bit of a cold from convention. Well, Megan got a convention cold and then I've got it from her. That's what it certainly feels like. So I may have that. That's also another reason it was not recording with Chris and Dave, and also, obviously, as I said, Megan's birthday. But I've really enjoyed doing this entire run with everyone. It's been so much fun. We'll be doing something again like this with Ahsoka, and then Andor Series 2 rather, and then whatever else, our Skeleton Crew that's coming out as well, the end of this year, I think. So Ahsoka and Skeleton Crew will be doing, and then Andor Series 2, and then we'll see what else is coming out. I imagine by then there'll be another Mandoverse show announced, either Mando Series 4 or Book of Boba Fett Series 2 or something like that, or maybe something new. Who knows? And obviously Vision Series 2 as well will be doing, but I think that would just be a one-off episode, or maybe a two-parter, depending on the episodes, but I imagine I'll just do what we did for season 1 with Jack and Rhea and Megan. I imagine we'll just do one episode that's just quite long, tackling all of them. But again, we'll see. We'll see, friends. It's fun being a Star Wars fan. Please make sure you check out my stuff, Star Wars Comics in Canon. You can find that. It's on its own feed now. I'm still uploading to Comics in Motion and will continue to do so. And Star Wars Comics in Canon isn't fully caught up. But if you want to just kind of trawl through the back catalogue of Comics in Canon and you want to try and delve into just some Vader comics or Aphra or things like that, it's a really good place to start and go through there. Or you can go on YouTube where everything's in playlists, like Aphra playlists and Vader playlists, all those things. And obviously, if you want to support me, you can follow me at Genuine Chit-Chat on social media. Yeah, it was just a joy doing this with yourselves, and so much fun doing all these kind of Star Wars things, and I just love the audience and the support and all these sort of things that I get from all of you. So just thank you so much for supporting me in the many ways that you do. You can support me on Patreon as well. That's a financial contribution. You get Star Wars Legends book reviews on there and early access to things, and over 160 episodes of reviews of movies and TV shows and live performances and all kinds of stuff. So you can support me in loads of different ways. Check out the show notes. Friends, thank you so much for listening to this ramble right at the very end. I appreciate you all, and thanks again to Chris and Dave and all the other amazing guests I've had on this season, and we'll speak to you very soon. So friends, may the Force be with you.